The passion struck a methodology centered around mindset and behavior, shifts the psychology of progress, deliberate action, and intrinsic motivation. Written by John R. Miles. In the opening chapter of Passion, Struck, John R. Miles invites us to step back and look at our lives through a powerful lens, not of what we've achieved, but of why we're doing what we do. He begins by asking a simple but profound question. Are you living with passion, perseverance, and purpose, or are you merely existing? Many of us, he explains, drift through life on autopilot, chasing goals that don't fulfill us, following routines that don't inspire us, and settling for comfort instead of growth. Passion and perseverance, however, are the antidotes to this quiet stagnation. They're the fuel that transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary ones, and they're the forces that give life depth and meaning. Miles describes passion not as fleeting excitement or surface-level enthusiasm, but as a deep, enduring energy that connects us to something bigger than ourselves. True passion is about alignment, when your actions, values, and beliefs all point in the same direction. He reminds us that passion doesn't appear fully formed. It's cultivated through curiosity and courage. You find it by paying attention to what sparks your curiosity, what challenges you to grow, and what pulls you forward even when things get hard. Passion, Miles says, is the engine, but perseverance is the wheel that keeps you moving. Perseverance in this chapter is framed as the art of staying committed when enthusiasm fades and obstacles appear. Miles shares that every meaningful pursuit will test your resilience, and it's your willingness to keep showing up that separates those who dream from those who do. When you hit setbacks, the 5-second difference between quitting and continuing often determines your destiny. He writes that perseverance is not about pushing blindly. It's about choosing courage over comfort again and again. And that choice is where intentionality comes in. Intentionality is the silent discipline behind every passionate life. Miles defines it as living with purpose, on purpose, making decisions that reflect your deepest values rather than reacting to life as it comes. Most people, he explains, don't fail because they lack potential. They fail because they never take the time to aim. When you live intentionally, your passion has direction, your perseverance has focus, and your energy begins to align with what truly matters. Every morning becomes an opportunity to build the life you want, not someday, but today. Through stories from his own career in the military and corporate world, Miles illustrates how passion, perseverance, and intentionality intertwine to create transformation. He tells of moments when he almost gave up, when uncertainty felt overwhelming, yet choosing to move forward, even one step at a time, changed the trajectory of his life. These stories remind us that no one is born passion-struck. It's a decision we make daily to live awake, to stay present, and to act with purpose, even when no one is watching. He ends the chapter with a challenge. Ask yourself, what do I truly care about? What am I willing to struggle for? Because passion without perseverance fades, and perseverance without intention exhausts. But when all three work together, they create a life of momentum, a life that's not just lived but felt. Miles encourages readers to begin right now, in this very moment, by making one intentional choice that moves them closer to their purpose. It could be a small step, writing that email, starting that project, having that conversation, but that's how transformation begins. In the end, the power of passion, perseverance, and intentionality lies in their unity. Passion gives you your why. Perseverance gives you your how. Intentionality gives you your direction. Together, they form the heartbeat of a purpose-driven life, one where you don't just survive each day, but shape it with meaning, resilience, and fire. And as Miles reminds us, when you choose to live this way, you stop chasing success and start becoming significant. In Chapter 2 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles introduces one of his most powerful ideas, becoming what he calls a mission angler. The term captures the mindset of someone who lives with purpose, direction, and conviction. Just as an angler patiently casts their line, waiting with intention and skill for the right moment, a mission angler is someone who takes deliberate action toward their life's calling. They don't drift or wait for opportunities to appear, they create them. This chapter is all about mustering the inner strength and discipline to do something truly great with your life. Miles begins by explaining that greatness isn't reserved for a few exceptional people. It's available to anyone willing to live with purpose. But most of us, he says, are missionless. We're busy yet aimless. We fill our days with activity, but rarely with meaning. A mission angler, on the other hand, knows where they're casting their energy. They wake up with a sense of why that guides their what. They understand that purpose isn't something you find in a moment of clarity. It's something you build through consistent action and reflection. The mission you seek is already within you, waiting to be discovered through your choices. Miles uses his own experiences from the military to drive this point home. He shares how, as a young naval officer, he learned that a mission is only as strong as the conviction behind it. In the field, uncertainty and fear are constants, but a clear mission gives you direction even when everything around you is chaotic. Similarly, in life, you don't need all the answers before you start. What you need is commitment, the decision to pursue something bigger than yourself, even when the path isn't easy. The courage to act, even in the face of doubt, is what turns a dream into a mission. He explains that being a mission angler requires 3 qualities: clarity, courage, and consistency. Clarity means understanding what truly matters to you, what problems you want to solve, what kind of person you want to be, and what legacy you want to leave. Courage means taking that first step toward your goal, even when fear whispers that you're not ready. And consistency means showing up again and again, refining your aim as you go, learning from the misses and celebrating the small catches along the way. Just like an angler doesn't give up after one empty cast, a passionate, purposeful person learns to persist until success arrives. Miles reminds us that doing something great doesn't always mean changing the world. It can mean changing your world. It could be starting a community project, mentoring someone, writing your story, or pursuing a career that reflects your values. Greatness is about impact, and the most powerful impact often starts small. The key is to align your actions with your mission and to act with intention every single day. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to begin. He also warns about one of the biggest enemies of mission-driven living: distraction. In a world full of noise, it's easy to lose sight of what matters most. That's why intentionality is so important. Being a mission angler means saying no to what doesn't serve your purpose, and yes to what propels you toward it. Every choice, no matter how small either, moves you closer to or further from your mission. Miles encourages readers to ask themselves daily, am I living in alignment with my mission, or am I letting life happen to me? As the chapter closes, Miles challenges readers to identify their personal mission, not a vague dream, but a clear, actionable purpose. Write it down, he says. Say it aloud. Then take one deliberate step toward it today. Because when you combine passion with perseverance and direct it with purpose, you become unstoppable. You transform from a passive observer into an active creator of your destiny. The message of chapter 2 is simple but profound. You already have the power to do something great. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about choosing to muster the power within you right now. Become a mission angler. Cast your line with intention. Keep showing up even when the waters are uncertain. And soon you'll realize that greatness isn't something you chase. It's something you create through purpose, action, and faith in your mission. In chapter 3 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles introduces the idea of becoming a brand reinventor, someone who isn't afraid to evolve, adapt, and rewrite their own story. He reminds us that reinvention isn't just about changing what you do, it's about transforming who you are becoming. Too many people get trapped in identities they've outgrown. They define themselves by old titles, past achievements, or outdated versions of themselves. But life, Miles says, isn't meant to be lived in the past tense. Growth demands reinvention. And every time you reinvent yourself, you move one step closer to your true potential. Miles begins the chapter with a truth many of us resist. You are not a static being. You are a living, breathing work in progress. Yet fear often holds people back from change. We fear judgment, uncertainty, or the discomfort of starting over. We cling to the familiar because it feels safe even when it's limiting. Miles argues that safety is often the enemy of greatness. Reinvention begins when you decide to trade comfort for courage, to embrace the unknown, and trust that what's next could be even better than what's been. He shares stories from his own life, from his time as a Navy officer to becoming a corporate leader and eventually an entrepreneur and thought leader. Each transition, he admits, came with fear and doubt. But he also learned that every reinvention gave him a deeper understanding of himself and his purpose. The key, he says, is to detach from the identity that no longer serves you. Who you were was necessary to bring you here, but it's not who you're meant to remain. Reinvention means letting go of what's no longer aligned and stepping boldly into what's next. Miles describes reinvention as a continuous process rather than a single event. It's not a dramatic leap overnight. It's a series of intentional choices that reshape your direction. You start by asking, what do I want to be known for now? Because your personal brand isn't what you say it is, it's what you consistently show through your actions, energy, and presence. To be a brand reinventor, you must be willing to experiment, to fail forward, and to redefine success on your own terms. Every pivot, every lesson, every change adds another layer to your story. He emphasizes that reinvention is not a sign of instability, it's a mark of evolution. Some of the most impactful people in history were relentless reinventors. They weren't afraid to shift, adapt, and rebuild themselves when life demanded it. Miles reminds us that the world is constantly changing technology industries, and culture evolve every day. So why shouldn't we? Stagnation, he says, is a silent killer of dreams. Reinvention keeps you relevant, alive, and engaged with the world around you. One of the most powerful ideas in this chapter is that reinvention starts with honesty. You have to be willing to look in the mirror and admit when something isn't working, when your career habits or relationships no longer align with your mission. That moment of truth is not failure, it's the beginning of transformation. When you use intentionality to realign your life, you stop living reactively and start creating proactively. Reinvention at its core is about reclaiming authorship over your story. Miles also addresses the myth that it's too late to change. Whether you're 25 or 65, reinvention is always possible. Every new chapter begins with a single decision: to no longer let fear dictate your direction. He encourages readers to ask themselves, what version of me needs to emerge next to fulfill my purpose? Then take one small action today to begin that evolution. Enroll in that course, start that conversation, take that risk, because every act of reinvention begins with a single intentional step. As the chapter concludes, Miles delivers a message that resonates deeply. Your brand is not a label, it's a legacy. It's not about being perfect or impressive. It's about being authentic. Reinvention isn't abandoning who you are, it's becoming who you were always meant to be. When you choose to evolve rather than resist change, you reclaim your power. You remind yourself and the world that growth is your greatest brand. So don't be afraid to outgrow old versions of yourself. Don't wait for permission to start over. Count the cost of staying the same and realize it's far greater than the discomfort of change. Because every time you reinvent yourself, you breathe new life into your story. And when you do, you don't just become someone different, you become someone more. In Chapter 4 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles takes us on a surprising journey through a powerful metaphor, the mosquito auditor. At first glance, it sounds strange. What does a mosquito have to do with passion, purpose, or greatness? But as Miles explains, the mosquito represents the most dangerous animal on the planet, not because of its size or strength, but because of its ability to drain life silently. In the same way, there are people, environments, and even thoughts in our lives that act like mosquitoes, slowly sucking away our energy, confidence, and potential, without us even realizing it. Miles begins by reminding us that passion and purpose require energy. To pursue your mission, you need focus, drive, and emotional strength. But when you allow negative influences into your life, toxic people, self-doubt, gossip, fear, or comparison, that energy starts to disappear little by little. Just like a mosquito's bite, these influences seem small at first. A critical comment here, a discouraging thought there. But over time, they leave you drained, distracted, and disconnected from your true self. The key, Miles says, is learning how to audit your environment and protect your energy from those mosquitoes before they steal your passion. He describes the mosquito auditor as someone who is hyper-aware of where their energy goes. These are people who regularly evaluate their relationships, routines, and even their inner dialogue, asking, is this helping me grow or is it holding me back? They don't allow negativity to become normal. They recognize that what you tolerate, you eventually become. If you surround yourself with people who complain, you'll start to complain. If you listen to those who doubt, you'll start to doubt. The people and ideas around you shape your reality, and it's your responsibility to choose them wisely. Miles shares stories from his own career to show how easily passion can be drained by the wrong environment. He recalls moments when he worked in high-pressure settings where negativity and criticism dominated. Even though he was achieving success on paper, he felt exhausted and uninspired. It was only when he stepped back and audited his surroundings that he realized the truth: he had allowed toxic influences to dull his purpose. That realization became a turning point. Once he started surrounding himself with growth-minded, supportive people, his energy and creativity came back to life. He emphasizes that the most dangerous animal isn't just outside of us, it can live within us too. Our own inner critic can be the biggest mosquito of all. The voice that says, "You're not ready, you're not good enough," or "Why bother?" is often the one draining us most. Miles urges readers to recognize this self-sabotage for what it is, fear disguised as logic. When those thoughts arise, he recommends responding with intention. Pause, breathe, and replace them with truth. I am capable. I am learning. I am enough. Protecting your mindset is just as important as protecting your environment. To become a true mosquito auditor, Miles suggests creating boundaries that preserve your passion. Say no when something doesn't align with your mission. Limit your time around those who constantly complain or criticize. Choose conversations that uplift rather than drain. Guard your attention, what you read, watch, and scroll through, because your focus is the most valuable currency you have. Every moment you give away to negativity is a moment stolen from your purpose. He ends the chapter with a wake-up call. The most dangerous animal on the planet isn't out there. It's anything or anyone that convinces you to give up on your own potential. Miles reminds us that passion and purpose can only thrive in an environment of positivity, courage, and belief. It's up to us to cultivate that space, to surround ourselves with people who challenge us to rise, not shrink, with ideas that fuel us, not drain us. The takeaway is simple yet profound. You can't live a passionate life if you let your energy be drained by toxic influences. The more intentional you are about what you allow into your mind and your circle, the more unstoppable you become. So take a moment to look around and within. Who or what are the mosquitoes in your life? Identify them. Set boundaries. Protect your energy. Because when you stop letting the wrong things drain you, you create space for the right things to ignite you. And that's the real secret of a passion struck life, not just chasing what lights you up, but also having the courage to remove what dims your flame. In Chapter 5 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles challenges one of the most common misconceptions we hold about success, the idea that our biggest competition lies outside of us. He reveals a deeper truth. You are your biggest competitor. The real battle isn't against other people, external challenges, or even circumstance. It's the battle within your own mind. The doubts, fears, excuses, and insecurities you carry are often the greatest obstacles standing between you and your fullest potential. This chapter calls you to become a fear confronter, someone who doesn't run from fear, but meets it head-on, transforming it into fuel for growth. Miles begins by explaining that fear is a natural part of every journey. It's hardwired into us, that voice of caution that whispers, "Stay safe, don't risk it, don't fail." But the truth, he says, is that fear rarely keeps us safe. More often, it keeps us stuck. The difference between people who succeed and those who stay stagnant isn't the absence of fear, it's the ability to take action despite it. The fear confronter learns to see fear not as an enemy, but as a compass. Wherever fear shows up, it's pointing towards something meaningful, an area of potential, growth purpose, or possibility. Miles reflects on his time in the military where confronting fear was part of daily life. He learned that courage isn't about being fearless, it's about moving forward, even when your heart is pounding. He recalls moments when fear tried to paralyze him when uncertainty loomed large. But by taking a single step forward, he discovered a power he didn't know he had. That's the essence of being a fear confronter, realizing that the fear you feel is proof you're pushing boundaries, stretching your limits, and stepping into new territory. He explains that fear often disguises itself in subtle ways: procrastination, perfectionism, overthinking, or self-criticism. These are not signs of laziness or lack of ambition. They are fear, wearing different masks. When you hesitate to send that email, share that idea, or start that new project, it's usually not because you can't, it's because deep down you're afraid of failing, or worse, of succeeding and being seen. Miles encourages readers to strip fear of its power by shining light on it, to acknowledge it, name it, and then act anyway. Because once you take that first step, fear loses its grip. He introduces a powerful mindset shift: you are not in competition with anyone else. Comparison is one of fear's favorite tools. It convinces you that others are ahead, better, or more deserving. But true success, Miles insists, comes when you stop competing with others and start competing with the version of yourself from yesterday. Every day, your goal is to grow, to be braver, wiser, and more intentional than you were before. That's how greatness is built, not through rivalry, but through self-mastery. Miles also emphasizes the importance of reframing failure. To a fear confronter, failure isn't final, it's feedback. Every mistake teaches you something vital about what to do differently next time. Fear thrives in silence and shame. But once you view failure as part of the process, you disarm it. He urges readers to remember that even the most successful people, entrepreneurs, leaders, artists, all had to confront fear countless times. The difference is that they didn't let fear dictate their direction. They moved anyway. As the chapter nears its end, Miles offers a challenge. Identify one fear that's been holding you back. Maybe it's fear of rejection, fear of change, or fear of not being good enough. Write it down. Then take one small intentional action toward it today. That single act, even if it's tiny, will remind you that courage is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. He closes with a powerful reminder: you are both the obstacle and the opportunity. The voice that says you can't and the one that whispers you can are both yours, and whichever you feed determines your future. When you stop running from fear and start confronting it, you reclaim your power. You begin to see that fear was never there to stop you. It was there to shape you. So stand tall, face it. Don't let fear write your story, because the truth is the person you're meant to become is waiting on the other side of the fear you refuse to confront. And when you finally realize that your only real competition is yourself, that's when you become unstoppable. In Chapter 6 of Passion Struck, John and Miles invites us to master one of life's most underrated superpowers: perspective. He reminds us that in every challenge, conflict, or setback, we have a choice: to zoom in on the pain or to zoom out and see the bigger picture. Most of us, he says, live with the lens pulled too close. We obsess over tiny details, immediate emotions, and short-term discomfort. But when we zoom out, we gain clarity. We see that what feels catastrophic today may actually be a stepping stone toward growth tomorrow. Perspective is not denial of reality. It's the wisdom to recognize that reality is bigger than this moment. Miles describes perspective as the art of shifting your mental altitude. Just like an airplane climbs above a storm to find clear skies, we can rise above our emotional turbulence by changing how we see it. When you're in the thick of stress, fear, or disappointment, everything feels permanent. But if you pull back, if you ask, how will this look in a year? In 5 years? What might this teach me? The weight begins to lift. You start to notice that pain and progress often travel together. Perspective turns problems into teachers, obstacles into opportunities, and failure into feedback. He tells the story of people who faced immense hardship, career losses, health scares, personal tragedies, yet emerged stronger because they refused to let their immediate circumstances define them. They practiced zooming out. They asked themselves, what else might be true? That simple question opens a world of possibility. When you zoom out, you stop reacting and start responding. You stop seeing life as something happening to you and begin seeing it as something happening for you. Miles explains that cultivating perspective doesn't mean you ignore pain. It means you place it in context. Think of it like holding a camera. When you focus too tightly, all you see is the crack in the glass. But when you widen the frame, you realize there's a beautiful horizon beyond it. Perspective is about remembering that you are not defined by a single moment, a single mistake, or even a single season. You are a constantly evolving story, and every page, even the messy ones, contributes to the masterpiece. He also introduces the idea of temporal perspective, understanding that emotions are temporary, but values are timeless. When life throws chaos your way, grounding yourself in what truly matters, your purpose, your principles, your passions helps you regain stability. Perspective transforms "why is this happening to me?" into "what is this here to teach me?" It replaces bitterness with curiosity and turns despair into direction. Miles encourages us to practice perspective daily. When you feel overwhelmed, step back and breathe. Imagine yourself from above, watching your life from a higher vantage point. Suddenly, what felt impossible starts to feel manageable. The project that failed becomes a lesson in resilience. The relationship that ended becomes a lesson in self-worth. The fear that once crippled you becomes proof that you cared enough to try. Perspective allows you to harness meaning from every experience, and meaning gives life power. As the chapter closes, Miles offers a beautiful reminder. The world expands or contracts based on the size of your perspective. When you zoom in too close, life feels small, chaotic, and suffocating. But when you zoom out, when you remember the vastness of possibility, the resilience of the human spirit, and the bigger mission of your life, you feel lighter, freer, and more intentional. Perspective doesn't erase pain, but it empowers you to rise above it. So the next time you're caught in the noise of everyday life, pause. Step back, zoom out. Ask yourself what this moment is really trying to show you. Because once you harness the power of perspective, you stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming the architect of understanding. And from that elevated view, you'll see that every twist, every turn, and every trial is part of something far greater, the extraordinary story of your becoming. In Chapter 7 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles takes us into the heart of creation, the place where dreams are born and brought to life. He reminds us that so many people live restrained lives not because they lack ability, but because they've forgotten how to dream boldly. We've been conditioned to play it's safe to color within the lines to follow predictable paths. But the truth Miles says is that every breakthrough, every innovation, and every transformation begins with a dream, one that dares to challenge the limits of what's possible. To become an action creator, you must first give yourself permission to dream that dream. He begins by explaining that dreaming is not about wishful thinking. It's an act of courage. It's declaring to the world, I believe something greater is possible, and I am willing to pursue it. Miles writes that the greatest tragedy isn't failure, it's the dream never pursued because fear kept it locked away. We talk ourselves out of our dreams before they ever have a chance to breathe. We tell ourselves we're not ready, not smart enough, not worthy enough. But the truth is, dreams don't need permission from the world. They only need permission from you. Miles encourages readers to reconnect with their inner vision, the part of themselves that once imagined without limits. As children, we dream freely. We believe we can fly, build, create, explore. But as adults, we trade imagination for practicality. The action creator mindset is about reclaiming that childlike wonder and pairing it with deliberate, disciplined action. It's not enough to visualize the dream. You must start taking steps toward it, however small. Action breathes life into vision. Every great creator, from artists to entrepreneurs, began with a single act of courage, a moment when they said, "Why not me?" Miles emphasizes that dreams grow through momentum. You don't have to see the entire path to take the first step. When you start moving, opportunities begin to appear. The act of creation transforms your mindset from passive to powerful. Suddenly, you're no longer waiting for permission. You're writing your own script. The key, he says, is to stop waiting for perfect timing. Perfection is an illusion that paralyzes progress. In this chapter, Miles also talks about the importance of aligning your dreams with purpose. A dream rooted in service, passion, and authenticity becomes unstoppable. It's not about chasing fame or approval, but about creating something meaningful, something that reflects your values and uplifts others. When your dream is tied to who you truly are, it becomes a calling. And callings, Miles reminds us, are not optional. They are invitations from the universe to become who you were meant to be. He shares stories of individuals who dared to dream differently, people who left comfort zones, defied norms, and built lives that inspired millions. What set them apart wasn't talent alone, it was permission. They allowed themselves to imagine, to believe, and to act. That's the essence of being an action creator, transforming someday into today. Every bold life begins with one decision: to stop watching and start doing. As the chapter closes, Miles leaves us with a powerful truth. Dreams are fragile until you decide to protect them through action. The world will try to talk you out of your vision. Fear will whisper that it's too late. Doubt will tell you that you're not enough. But every time you take a step, you silence those voices a little more. Each act of courage strengthens your belief until one day you realize the dream you once imagined has become your reality. So today, give yourself that permission slip. Dream the dream vividly, wildly, unapologetically. Then act, even if it's imperfectly. Because when you take consistent, passionate action toward your vision, you stop being a passive observer of your life and become its creator. And that is the true essence of a passion-struck life, not waiting for destiny to happen, but daring to make it. In Chapter 8 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles explores a profound idea that anxiety, when understood and managed intentionally, can actually become a source of power. He begins by acknowledging a truth we all feel but rarely admit. Anxiety is part of being human. It's the body's way of saying something important is happening. The problem isn't that we feel anxious, it's that we've been taught to fear anxiety itself. Miles challenges this view, showing us how to transform anxiety from a crippling enemy into a guiding ally. The goal isn't to eliminate anxiety, but to optimize it, to learn how to be on edge without going over it. He describes anxiety as energy, raw, potent, and often misunderstood. Left unchecked, it spirals into panic or paralysis. But when harnessed, it becomes motivation, focus, and awareness. Think about it, he says. Before every major leap in life, whether it's giving a speech, launching a business, or making a big decision, there's anxiety. That tension is the body preparing you to perform. The key is not to fight the feeling, but to reframe it. Instead of saying, "I'm anxious," try saying, "I'm excited." The physiology is the same. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your mind sharpens. But your interpretation changes everything. Miles shares how high performers in sports, business, and the military use this principle daily. They don't suppress their anxiety, they channel it. They treat it as information, not intimidation. When anxiety shows up, it's usually pointing towards something meaningful, a challenge that matters, an opportunity to grow. By facing it head-on, you turn fear into fuel. He calls this process optimizing anxiety, transforming emotional turbulence into momentum. He also reminds us that chronic anxiety thrives on uncertainty and avoidance. The more we resist or deny our anxious thoughts, the louder they get. The antidote is awareness and action. When you notice anxiety, pause and name it. Then ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Often it's signaling a gap between where you are and where you want to be. Once you identify that gap, take one small action to close it. Movement breaks the cycle of fear. Even a small step, sending the email, making the call, writing the plan, reminds your brain that you're in control. Miles introduces practical tools to optimize anxiety grounding, techniques, mindful breathing, and perspective shifts. He encourages readers to visualize anxiety as a wave, something you can ride instead of drown in. When you breathe through the rise and fall, you teach your nervous system that discomfort doesn't equal danger. Over time, you build emotional resilience, the ability to stay steady under pressure. This is what allows leaders, creators, and everyday heroes to act with courage even when their hearts are pounding. He also discusses the importance of edge management, finding your personal balance between calm and challenge. Too little anxiety leads to complacency. Too much leads to chaos. The sweet spot is the optimal edge, where you feel alert, engaged, and alive. That's where growth happens. It's where you perform your best, connect your deepest, and live your fullest. Miles reminds us that living a passion-struck life means embracing this edge, leaning into uncertainty with trust that you can handle whatever comes next. As the chapter closes, Miles leaves us with a simple but powerful truth. Anxiety is not your weakness, it's your compass. It points toward what matters most to you. It reminds you that you're stretching, striving, evolving. When you stop running from anxiety and start working with it, you unlock a hidden strength, the courage to keep showing up even when things feel uncertain. So the next time you feel anxious, don't ask, "How do I get rid of this?" Instead, ask, "What is this teaching me?" Remember that being on edge is a sign that you care, that you're pushing your boundaries, that you're alive. Harness that energy, breathe through it, and let it guide you forward. Because when you learn to stand on the edge, without falling off, you don't just manage anxiety, you master it. In Chapter 9 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles dives into the powerful connection between originality and adaptability, two traits that define those who truly shape the world. He begins by breaking a common myth that originality means being completely different from everyone else. In truth, originality is not about rejecting everything that came before. It's about seeing familiar things in unfamiliar ways. It's about connecting dots that others overlook and being brave enough to evolve when life demands it. True originality, Miles reminds us, is a living, breathing force, and to keep it alive, you must be adaptable. He writes that originality isn't a fixed trait, it's a mindset. It comes from curiosity, courage, and a willingness to question the ordinary. Every great innovator, artist, and leader from Da Vinci to Jobs didn't just create, they adapted. They listened to the changing rhythm of life and adjusted their tune accordingly. Miles emphasizes that adaptability is the secret ingredient that keeps creativity relevant. Without it, originality becomes a rigid and outdated echo of what once worked. When you cling too tightly to one idea or one version of yourself, you stop growing. But when you allow yourself to evolve, you remain dynamic, inventive, and alive. Miles encourages readers to see adaptability not as compromise, but as evolution. Life will constantly throw change your way, new challenges, shifting environments, unexpected detours. Original thinkers don't resist change, they dance with it. They ask, "How can this make me better? What can I learn here?" Every setback becomes data, every disruption becomes a catalyst for reinvention. He calls this the flow of originality, where flexibility fuels creation and curiosity guides transformation. In this chapter, Miles shares stories of individuals who embraced adaptability as their superpower. He talks about entrepreneurs who pivoted when markets shifted, artists who reinvented their craft, and everyday people who found strength by letting go of old versions of themselves. What they all had in common was an unshakable openness, a readiness to learn, unlearn, and begin again. They understood that the world is always changing, and so must they. As Miles says, originality thrives in motion. He warns that many people lose their originality because they fear change. They cling to comfort, repeat what's worked before, and slowly stop innovating. But stagnation, he reminds us, is the silent killer of creativity. To live a passion-struck life, you must continuously explore, question, and adapt. The best ideas often come not from mastery, but from experimentation, from the willingness to fail, adjust, and try again. Adaptability keeps your originality resilient, especially in a world that never stops evolving. Miles also speaks about the emotional side of adaptability, the courage to reinvent yourself. He challenges us to ask, what parts of my identity no longer serve me? What beliefs am I holding on to out of fear rather than purpose? Reinvention isn't losing yourself. It's uncovering more of who you truly are. Each version of you brings new strengths, new insights, and new creative power. The goal isn't to be someone else. It's to become the fullest expression of yourself again and again. He closes the chapter with a powerful reminder. Originality and adaptability are two sides of the same coin. Originality gives you vision, the courage to see differently. Adaptability gives you endurance, the ability to keep growing as the world changes. Together they make you unstoppable. The people who shape history, Miles says, are not those who cling to what they know, but those who remain curious enough to keep discovering. So embrace your originality, but let it evolve. Don't be afraid to change your mind, your methods, or your direction. Because every time you adapt, you expand your creative reach. Every time you evolve, you renew your originality. In the end, the most authentic thing you can be is yourself in motion, growing, learning, and creating from a place of endless possibility. In Chapter 10 of Passion, Struck, John R. Miles explores one of the most powerful and painful truths of personal growth. Sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone. He calls this the art of being a boundary. Magnifier, someone who understands that protecting their values, time, and energy is not selfish, it's essential. Miles begins by saying that most people live in fear of disapproval. We crave acceptance, validation, and belonging so deeply that we often compromise what we know is right just to fit in. But if you're truly committed to a life of purpose and integrity, there will come a time when you must stand firm, even when that stand leaves you isolated. He reminds us that boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They separate what nurtures you from what drains you, what aligns with your mission from what distracts you. Every great leader, creator, and visionary has had to draw these lines. They've faced moments when the world misunderstood them, questioned them, even mocked them. But they stayed true to their principles. Miles calls this the lonely edge, the space between belonging and becoming. It's uncomfortable, but it's where authenticity grows. When you magnify your boundaries, you define who you are and what you stand for. Miles explains that being right isn't about ego or superiority, it's about integrity. It's about acting in alignment with your values, even when no one else understands. He shares stories of people who walked away from toxic jobs, unhealthy relationships, or hollow success because staying would have meant betraying themselves. Those choices were hard. They faced loneliness, judgment, even loss. But on the other side of that solitude came clarity, the peace of knowing they stayed true to their truth, that Miles says is real freedom. He also reminds us that boundaries are not just about saying no to others, they're about saying yes to yourself. Every time you enforce a boundary, you reclaim your energy and your self-respect. It's how you build emotional strength and prevent burnout. The people who constantly give without limits eventually lose their sense of self. But those who set boundaries operate from abundance, not exhaustion. They know that protecting their inner world is what allows them to keep creating, leading, and loving authentically. Miles goes further, explaining that solitude isn't a punishment, it's preparation. When you stand alone, you develop clarity, confidence, and conviction. You stop seeking validation and start trusting your own compass. This is where resilience is forged, in the quiet moments when no one else is clapping and you still choose to move forward. Being right might mean losing company for a while, but it also means gaining integrity forever. He encourages readers to remember that the cost of people-pleasing is often the sacrifice of purpose. When you try to make everyone happy, you lose sight of your own direction. Miles writes that your boundaries are your declaration of self-worth. They say, I respect my time. I honor my values. I know who I am. And when you live that truth consistently, the right people, those who respect your strength, will find you. Authentic connection always replaces conditional approval. As the chapter closes, Miles leaves us with a truth that resonates deeply. The path of integrity is often lonely at first, but it leads to a life of peace and power. Boundaries may create distance, but they also create space for growth, creativity, and meaningful connection. When you stop apologizing for your limits, you start attracting relationships and opportunities that honor who you are. So if you find yourself standing alone because you chose to do what's right, remember this: solitude is not a sign that you're lost. It's proof that you're walking your own path. Being right may mean being alone for a season, but that season shapes the strength and clarity that will guide you for a lifetime. Magnify your boundaries. Stand firm in your truth, because in the end, it's better to be alone with integrity than surrounded by people who demand your silence. In Chapter 11 of Passion, Struck, John R. Miles delivers one of his most compelling messages, yet that true inspiration doesn't come from words alone, it comes from action. He calls this being an outward inspirer, someone who doesn't just talk about change, but embodies it. To speak with your feet, Miles says, means to live your truth so powerfully that others are moved not by what you say, but by what you do. In a world overflowing with talkers, dreamers, and planners, the people who make the greatest impact are those who move. Miles begins by pointing out how easy it is to get stuck in the cycle of intention without execution. We read, plan, post, and discuss, but we rarely take the bold steps that create real transformation. The outward inspirer breaks that pattern. They understand that inspiration is a verb, not a speech. Every great movement, every act of courage, every ripple of positive change begins when someone chooses to act. They don't wait for permission. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They take the first step, even if it's small, even if it's scary. Because momentum, Miles reminds us, is built through motion. He tells stories of ordinary people who became extraordinary through action. A teacher who started a program for underprivileged kids, a veteran who turned pain into advocacy, a neighbor who quietly built a community garden that changed the neighborhood. None of them were famous, wealthy, or perfectly prepared. But they decided that standing still wasn't an option. They let their feet carry their message. And in doing so, they inspired others to move too. That's the ripple effect of purpose. One person's action becomes another person's awakening. Miles emphasizes that to speak with your feet, you must act in alignment with your values. Empty words mean little without integrity. Your daily habits, your choices, and your follow-through are the language through which others learn what you truly stand for. He writes, "The loudest statement you'll ever make is the life you lead." People are inspired, not by perfection, but by authenticity, by seeing someone live courageously, even when it's messy or uncertain. He also addresses a common trap, the belief that small actions don't matter. Miles destroys that myth. Every step, he says, counts. Every act of kindness, every boundary set, every dream pursued adds to the collective energy of positive change. The outward inspirer knows that even the smallest movement can create massive impact over time. It's not about grand gestures, it's about consistent integrity. When your actions reflect your purpose, your very presence becomes a message of hope and strength. But Miles also acknowledges that action takes courage. The moment you decide to move, fear will whisper reasons to stop. It will tell you that you're not ready, that no one will care, that your effort won't matter. That's when you must remember that inspiration is contagious, not because it's loud, but because it's real. When you act from the heart, even quietly, others feel it. They see your courage and think, if they can, maybe I can too. He encourages readers to view their life as a living message, a daily opportunity to demonstrate what passion, purpose, and perseverance look like. Your feet, he says, are the proof of your beliefs. If you say you care about change, step into it. If you say you want to help others, reach out. If you say you value growth, take the next leap. Your steps tell the story of your soul far louder than any words ever could. As the chapter closes, Miles reminds us of a timeless truth. Talk changes minds, but action changes lives. To be an outward inspirer is to live your message, not just speak it. You don't need a stage, a title, or a platform. Your actions are your platform. Every day you have the chance to inspire someone simply by how you live, love, and lead. So today, ask yourself, am I just talking about my dreams, or am I walking toward them? Because the world doesn't need more people who say the right things. It needs more people who move in the right direction. Speak with your feet, act with your heart, and remember, the most inspiring words are the ones written in motion. In Chapter 12 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles introduces one of his most profound leadership principles, the gardener leader. It's a concept that challenges traditional leadership models and redefines what it means to guide others toward greatness. Miles explains that true leadership isn't about control, authority, or micromanagement. It's about cultivation, just as a gardener doesn't force a plant to grow, but creates the right environment for it to flourish. A great leader nurtures people, empowers them, and trusts them to thrive. This is what he calls eyes-on, hands-off leadership. Miles begins by painting a vivid picture of leadership as a garden, a living ecosystem of ideas, people, and growth. The gardener doesn't hover over each seed, pulling at the leaves to make them grow faster. Instead, they prepare the soil, water consistently, and provide sunlight and protection. Then they step back, allowing nature to do what it does best. Leadership works the same way. The most effective leaders don't dictate every action. They guide, observe, and support. They know when to step in and when to step aside. He contrasts this with the hands-on style of leadership many organizations still practice, where control and micromanagement stifle creativity and trust. When leaders grip too tightly, they crush potential. When they loosen that grip and focus on creating an environment of safety, purpose, and accountability, people naturally grow into their best selves. Miles writes, "A gardener leader doesn't grow people, they grow the conditions where people can grow themselves." Through powerful examples, he shows how this philosophy transforms teams and cultures. One story tells of a CEO who stopped giving directives and started asking questions, shifting from telling people what to do to asking why they wanted to do it. The result: innovation, motivation, and ownership flourished. When people feel trusted and valued, they don't just follow, they lead themselves. Miles explains that being eyes-on means being present and aware. Great leaders observe closely, not to control, but to understand. They notice when someone is struggling, when a project is drifting, or when a new idea is taking root. But instead of stepping in to take over, they ask, "How can I help you succeed?" They guide without overshadowing, ensuring that others feel both supported and autonomous. It's a delicate balance, like pruning a garden, just enough to promote growth without cutting too deep. He also reminds readers that this kind of leadership requires humility and patience. A gardener knows that growth takes time, and sometimes, despite your best efforts, not every plant will bloom. Likewise, not every idea or person will flourish under your care, and that's okay. The point is not perfection, it's cultivation. Miles emphasizes that real leaders focus on development over dominance. They understand that their role is to serve the mission and the people, not their own ego. Miles beautifully ties this to the power of legacy. The gardener leader doesn't seek recognition, they take joy in seeing others succeed. They know their impact is measured, not by what they do personally, but by the growth they inspire in others. Leadership at its core is about empowerment, about helping others discover their own strength and purpose. And when you lead that way, your influence doesn't fade. When you step away, it multiplies. He closes the chapter with a powerful reminder: your leadership should be a garden others want to grow in. This means being intentional about your environment, the culture you create, the trust you build, and the example you set. Be the kind of leader who plants seeds of confidence, waters them with encouragement, and gives them room to reach for the sun. That's how passion, innovation, and excellence take root. So if you want to lead like a gardener, remember this: keep your eyes open, stay aware, observant, and engaged. But keep your hands off, resist the urge to control or fix everything. Trust the process, trust your people. Because when you create space for others to grow, you don't just build a stronger team, you cultivate a legacy of leadership that endures long after you've moved on. In Chapter 13 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles teaches one of the most vital lessons for anyone striving to live with purpose, the art of being a conscious engager. This means learning how to focus deeply, intentionally, and fully on what truly matters. In a world filled with distractions, where every moment competes for our attention, Miles reminds us that success and fulfillment come from mastering the discipline of keeping The main thing. He begins by pointing out how easy it is to drift through life on autopilot, constantly reacting, multitasking, and chasing urgency rather than meaning. Our days become fragmented, our energy scattered, and before long we're busy but not effective, active but not purposeful. The conscious engager, on the other hand, understands that focus is freedom. They live with clarity, choosing carefully where their attention goes, because they know attention is the most valuable currency of modern life. Miles explains that keeping the main thing requires three key ingredients: clarity, boundaries, and presence. Clarity means knowing your priorities, understanding your mission, your goals, and your values so well that everything else fades into the background. Boundaries mean protecting that clarity, saying no to distractions, noise, and energy drains that pull you off course. And presence means showing up fully for the task or person in front of you. Not halfway, not multitasking, but with your mind, heart, and intention aligned in the same direction. He illustrates this through the story of a top-performing Navy pilot who said that his success didn't come from doing more, but from doing less better. In high-stakes situations, the pilot learned to narrow his focus to what mattered most: one target, one goal, one mission. That same mindset applies to every aspect of life. Whether it's building a business, nurturing relationships, or pursuing personal growth, the people who make the greatest impact are those who resist distraction and pour their energy into what truly moves the needle. Miles challenges us to examine how often we give our attention to the trivial many instead of the vital few. We scroll, react, and consume endlessly, mistaking movement for progress. But a conscious engager steps back and asks, is this helping me live the life I want to create? If the answer is no, they redirect their focus. This practice isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters, most with full engagement and intention. He also emphasizes the importance of presence in relationships. When you talk to someone, truly listen. When you work, give your all. When you rest, rest fully without guilt. Miles reminds us that divided attention is the enemy of excellence and fulfillment. The conscious engager doesn't just manage their time, they honor it. Every moment becomes meaningful when approached with awareness and purpose. One of the most powerful takeaways from this chapter is the reminder that life's greatest satisfaction doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right things well. Miles says, your life expands in proportion to your focus. The more intentional you are with where you place your attention, the more aligned your results become with your deepest desires. He closes the chapter with a challenge: identify your main thing. Maybe it's your health, your relationships, your purpose-driven work, or your personal growth. Whatever it is, commit to it. Eliminate the distractions that don't serve it. Design your day, your environment, and your mindset around protecting it. Because when you keep the main thing, you live with direction instead of drift, and passion becomes not just an emotion but a way of being. In Chapter 14 of Passion, Struck, John R. Miles takes us on a transformative journey, revealing the 5 key transition points that shape the path to living a truly passion-driven life. He begins by acknowledging a truth we often overlook. Passion isn't a destination, it's a process. Becoming passion-struck requires moving through stages of growth, challenge, and self-discovery. Each transition point is a doorway, a shift in mindset or behavior that allows us to step closer to the life we were meant to live. The first transition point, Miles explains, is awakening to possibility. It's the moment you recognize that more is possible than what you've been settling for. It's a shift from complacency to curiosity, where you start asking, what if I could live fully, boldly, and on purpose? This awakening sparks the initial courage needed to pursue change. The second transition is commitment to courageous action. Awareness alone isn't enough. You must decide to move even when fear lingers. Miles emphasizes that action, however imperfect, is the bridge between dreaming and becoming. The passion-struck individual takes responsibility for their life, understanding that progress requires deliberate, sometimes uncomfortable steps forward. The third transition point is resilience in the face of resistance. Miles reminds us that challenges, setbacks, and doubt are inevitable. The key is not avoiding adversity, but learning to harness it. Each obstacle becomes a teacher, shaping your confidence and strengthening your resolve. Resilience transforms struggle into fuel, preparing you for greater heights. The fourth transition is authentic self-expression. Here you begin to align your actions with your values, gifts, and unique vision. Miles explains that passion flourishes when we stop imitating others and start honoring our own voice. Authenticity attracts opportunities, connections, and experiences that resonate with your true self, creating momentum on the journey. Finally, the fifth transition point is sustaining momentum through mastery. Becoming passion-struck isn't a one-time event, it's a lifestyle. Miles teaches that sustained growth requires discipline, reflection, and continuous learning. You must consistently engage in behaviors and habits that support your vision while remaining flexible to evolve as new opportunities and insights arise. Miles closes the chapter by reminding readers that these 5 transitions are not strictly linear. They often overlap, repeat, and cycle throughout life. The journey to becoming passion-struck is dynamic, challenging, and exhilarating. He urges us to embrace each transition, fully understanding that the discomfort and uncertainty along the way are indicators of real growth. Every shift, every choice, and every step forward brings you closer to a life that is vivid, meaningful, and deeply aligned with your purpose. Ultimately, Chapter 14 is a call to action. Recognize the transitions, step into them boldly, and allow each stage to transform you. By moving intentionally through these 5 points, Miles assures us we don't just chase passion, we live it, radiate it, and inspire others to do the same. In Chapter 15 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles introduces a concept that is both practical and profoundly motivational: the physics of progress. He begins by explaining that growth and achievement are governed by natural laws, principles that, if ignored, can stall even the most passionate person's journey. Just as physics dictates motion, energy, and momentum in the physical world, there are forces in life that determine how and when progress happens. Miles argues that understanding and respecting these forces is essential for anyone committed to living a passion-driven life. He emphasizes that progress is rarely linear. We often imagine growth as a straight line, steady, predictable, and uninterrupted. In reality, the path is filled with acceleration, friction, setbacks, and leaps. Miles compares it to pushing a heavy object. The harder you push at first, the more resistance you feel. But as momentum builds, the effort becomes easier, and the object moves more quickly. The same principle applies to personal growth and the pursuit of goals. Early struggles are not failures. They are the energy required to build unstoppable momentum. Miles highlights 3 key principles of the physics of progress. First is initiation. Starting is the hardest part. Momentum cannot exist without motion. You must push against inertia even if the path forward is unclear. Second is consistency. Repeated effort compounds energy and results. Small intentional actions taken daily create a trajectory that eventually overcomes resistance and propels you forward. Third is adaptability. Just as physics considers friction and opposing forces, life requires you to adjust to challenges, resistance, and unexpected changes. Flexibility ensures that momentum is maintained even when conditions shift. He shares real-life examples of people who applied these principles and experienced extraordinary results. Entrepreneurs, athletes, and creators often report that their biggest breakthroughs came after periods of consistent effort, even when progress seemed imperceptible. The secret, Miles explains, is trusting the EI process, knowing that energy invested today will yield movement tomorrow. Ignoring the physics of progress, on the other hand, leads to frustration, burnout, and stalled potential. Miles also addresses the psychological dimension of progress. Often, we measure success by immediate results rather than energy invested. We forget that momentum compounds. Quietly, it doesn't always appear on the surface right away. He encourages readers to focus on the process, not just the outcome, and to recognize that consistent, focused action, no matter how small, generates exponential results over time. Understanding this principle allows us to navigate setbacks with patience, knowing that effort is never wasted. He concludes the chapter with a powerful call to action: respect the natural laws of progress, harness momentum, and keep moving, even when the path feels slow. Push through resistance, stay consistent, and adapt to challenges, because the universe rewards those who act with intention. Miles reminds us that passion alone is not enough. It must be combined with persistent effort, awareness of forces at play, and strategic action. When these elements align, progress becomes inevitable, and dreams that once felt distant start to materialize into reality. In Chapter 16 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles introduces one of his most creative and practical ideas, the bee and turtle effect. It's a philosophy that beautifully blends two essential forces of personal growth, vision, and patience. Miles explains that to live a passion-struck life, you must learn to dream like a bee and act like a turtle, combining the boundless energy of imagination with the steady discipline of execution. He begins by describing the bee, small but tireless, buzzing from flower to flower with purpose and persistence. The bee represents our dreaming nature, the part of us that dares to imagine big possibilities and see beauty where others see limitation. Bees don't question whether a flower is too far or too high, they simply go after it. In the same way, passion-struck individuals allow themselves to dream boldly, to envision a future so inspiring that it fuels their every action. They think expansively without fear or self-doubt. Then Miles introduces the turtle, slow, steady, deliberate. The turtle represents the planning side of our growth. While the bee reminds us to dream, the turtle reminds us to act with intention. Progress, he says, doesn't require speed, it requires consistency. The turtle moves slowly, but it never stops moving. Every step is purposeful, every movement directed. When you combine the bee's ability to dream big with the turtle's methodical patience, you unlock unstoppable momentum, one that is both inspired and sustainable. Miles explains that many people fail to reach their dreams because they live in extremes. Some are all bee buzzing with ideas, but never grounding them in action. Others are all turtle endlessly planning, but never daring to dream beyond what feels safe. The true magic, he says, lies in balancing both. You need the bee's boldness to set your sights high, but also the turtle's discipline to take daily, measurable steps toward those dreams. Dreaming without action is fantasy action. Without vision is aimless. He shares stories of innovators, leaders, and creators who embody this balance. Visionaries like Elon Musk or Oprah Winfrey dared to dream impossibly big, but their success came not from dreaming alone. It came from breaking their dreams down into small, consistent, achievable steps. Miles calls this planning small, creating micro-goals that compound over time into extraordinary outcomes. The bee gives direction, the turtle provides traction. Together, they make progress inevitable. Miles also dives into the emotional power of this balance. Dreaming big keeps your spirit alive. It connects you to purpose and possibility. Planning small, on the other hand, keeps you grounded. It helps you avoid overwhelm and burnout. Each small win becomes fuel for motivation, keeping your journey sustainable and joyful. He reminds readers that massive change doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from small, deliberate steps repeated over time. As the chapter concludes, Miles urges us to apply the bee and turtle effect in every area of our lives. Envision the life you truly want, the relationships, the work, the impact, and then map out the smallest possible action you can take today to move closer to it. Stay curious like the bee and persistent like the turtle. When you live this way, your dreams no longer feel distant or impossible. They become a series of daily choices and intentional movements that lead you right where you're meant to be. He closes with a simple yet powerful truth. Dreams give you direction, discipline gets you there. When you learn to dream big and plan small, you align imagination with execution, passion with patience, and vision with reality. And that, Miles says, is how you build a life of purpose, progress, and profound fulfillment, one small step at a time. In Chapter 17 of Passion Struck, John R. Miles brings everything together with a powerful message that the secret to a life of meaning, progress, and true Fulfillment lies in one transformative principle, intentionality. To become passion-struck is to live each day deliberately, to make conscious choices that align with your purpose, and to stop letting life happen to you. Miles reminds us that the difference between a life of mediocrity and a life of mastery is not luck, talent, or circumstance, it's intention. He begins by explaining that most people drift through life on autopilot, reacting instead of creating, following routines instead of writing their own story. We fill our days with activity, but not with meaning. Intentional living, he says, is the antidote to that drift. It's about waking up every morning and asking, what matters most today? And then aligning your energy, focus, and actions with that answer. It's about being proactive, not passive, purposeful, not predictable. Miles describes intentionality as the spark that ignites everything else: passion, purpose, progress, and peace. When you act with intention, you give direction to your energy. You stop wasting time on what's trivial and start investing in what's essential. You learn to say no to the noise and yes to what fuels your growth. He reminds readers that intentionality isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Every small mindful choice you make compounds into a meaningful life. He illustrates this with the story of individuals who transformed their lives simply by becoming more deliberate in how they spent their time. A burned-out executive who decided to schedule time for creativity each morning rediscovered joy in his work. A mother who chose to turn off her phone during dinner found deeper connection with her family. Miles uses these stories to show that intentionality doesn't require radical change. It requires consistent, conscious attention. Intentionality also means aligning your daily actions with your long-term purpose. Miles explains that every person has a unique mission, something that gives their life depth and direction. But that mission only becomes real when you integrate it into your choices. If your goal is to inspire others, live each day in a way that uplifts. If your purpose is to grow, seek discomfort and learning. If it's to love, then prioritize presence over productivity. Meaning comes when purpose meets practice. He also reminds us that intentionality requires courage. It means making decisions that may not please everyone, walking paths that feel uncertain, and letting go of habits that keep you comfortable but stagnant. Intentional people don't wait for the perfect moment, they create it. They act with clarity and conviction, knowing that progress is born from consistency, not convenience. Miles beautifully concludes that intentionality is the fire that fuels a passion-struck life. It transforms chaos into clarity, reaction into creation, and existence into experience. When you live with intention, you don't just pass through life, you participate in it. You become the architect of your own story, the sculptor of your destiny. He leaves us with a simple but profound question. What would your life look like if every choice you made was intentional? The answer, he says, is the difference between living by design and living by default. To unleash intentionality is to take back control, to live awake, aware, and aligned. And when you do, your path to meaning and fulfillment doesn't just appear, you ignite it one deliberate decision at a time. In the final chapter of Passion Struck, John R. Miles delivers a message that cuts straight to the heart, a call to action that challenges us to step into your sharp edges every day. He explains that the edges, those uncomfortable, uncertain, even painful parts of our lives, are where real growth happens. They are the moments that test our courage, stretch our limits, and refine our character. Miles reminds us that becoming passion-struck isn't about avoiding difficulty. It's about walking boldly into it, knowing that every sharp edge we face shapes us into the person we're meant to become. He begins by painting a vivid picture. Most people spend their lives trying to sand down their rough edges to stay safe, comfortable, and certain. But passion-struck individuals see those edges differently. They recognize them as invitations, opportunities to learn, to transform, and to rise. Each time you face fear, step into discomfort, or challenge your assumptions, you grow, stronger, wiser, and more authentic. The edge, he says, is where comfort ends and creation begins. Miles reflects on the journey the reader has taken through the book, from discovering purpose and passion to mastering intentionality and resilience. He explains that all these lessons converge here in the daily choice to Engage with life fully, not halfway. To be passion-struck means to wake up each morning ready to face your edges. The hard conversation. You've been avoiding the dream. You've been delaying the truth. You've been denying. Every edge you confront sharpens your spirit and brings you closer to your fullest potential. He shares that stepping into your edges doesn't mean seeking pain or chaos. It means embracing growth through challenge. It's about saying yes to the things that scare you because they also excite you. It's choosing action over hesitation, purpose over passivity, and courage over comfort. Miles reminds us that transformation is not born from ease. It's born from resistance. Just as a blade is sharpened by friction, so too are we refined by the pressures we face. Through moving examples of people who dared to live at their edges, entrepreneurs, artists, veterans, and everyday individuals, Miles shows that those who lean into difficulty don't just survive, they evolve. They find clarity in chaos, strength in struggle, and meaning in the messiness of life. The more we confront our edges, the less they cut us, and the more they carve us into something extraordinary. As he draws the book to a close, Miles emphasizes that being passion-struck is not a one-time awakening. It's a lifelong practice. Every day presents new edges, new chances to stretch, beyond fear to choose intention, and to live boldly. You won't always get it right. Some days you'll stumble, some days you'll resist. But what matters is that you keep showing up, that you keep stepping forward into the spaces that challenge and change you. He ends with a powerful truth. The sharp edges of life are not your enemies. They are your sculptors. When you meet them with courage and curiosity, they shape you into someone resilient, passionate, and fully alive. The passion-struck life is built one brave step at a time, at the edge, between who you are and who you are becoming. Miles closes with an invitation. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't hide from your edges. Step into them every single day, because that's where the magic happens, where growth ignites, and where you finally meet the most authentic version of yourself.